What do Sunrise on the Reaping, Great Big Beautiful Life, Say You'll Remember Me, and Silver Elite all have in common? Well, they're all viral on BookTok. And my hamasha, my fatal flaw, is that I have FOMO. And so when I see lots of people on BookTok raving about a book, ranting about a book, and I haven't read it, I want to be involved. And I feel this kind of like gravitational pull towards the bookshop. Suddenly the book's in my hand, as is my card, I'm paying for it, it's being put in my tote bag, and I'm on my way home to read and review it. So here we are once again. BookTok, we're back. This has actually become a kind of yearly tradition for me on this channel where once a year I succumb to curiosity and, you know, perhaps against my better judgment, I read the most viral books on BookTok. Sometimes we find 5-star books so good we wish we could invent a 6th star. Other times we read Iron Flame. That one was about as disappointing as the BookTok Million Lives Fantasy Ball, lest we forget. Luke Bateman will win the Pulitzer before I read another book in that series. For now, I'm going to be reading these 4 books. However, I do want to use this moment to point out that some of BookTok's detractors will still say that BookTok only promotes the same few books. BookTokers only talk about the same handful of books. And the thing is, I just don't think that is true. I don't think that's accurate. And to me, it makes me think, tell me you don't follow a diverse range of creators without telling me you don't follow a diverse range of creators. People on BookTok are talking about every single genre, and it's democratizing reading. It's such an exciting platform to be a part of. If you are only seeing the same few books being discussed, maybe you just need to follow some more people. It is the For You page, after all. Like, tell the algorithm what you want to see more of. I just want to make sure that I'm not pushing the narrative that BookTok only talks about a handful of books, because that's not the case. I think it's a bit of a tired and frankly boring narrative. However, some books are just more popular than others in the same way that some films are more popular, TV shows, music, and so more people talk about them, but that doesn't mean they are only talking about them. These to me seem to be the biggest books on BookTok based on my research. Research being doom scrolling and hours spent on this app. So let's get reading. I think I'm gonna start with this one, Emily Henry with Great BBL. This is Great Big Beautiful Life. You know how some people do kind of a yearly juice cleanse or like a yoga retreat to kind of cure them of all of their ailments and worries and to get rid of all that stress? That's an Emily Henry book for me. I love her writing. I think she's the queen of romance. And my yearly dose of an Emily Henry book is healing to me. So I'm very excited about this one, and let's get reading. I'll let you know when I'm done. Now, one thing that never lets me down is the sponsor of today's video, and that is Book of the Month. I feel like Book of the Month is actually the backbone of this community. And my box for this month has just arrived. It's always the best day when this turns up. This is the book that I went for this month. It's called What Kind of Paradise, and it's by Janelle Brown. A teenage girl breaks free from her father's world of isolation to discover that her whole life is a lie in this propulsive new novel. I've discovered so many incredible books just like this one thanks to Book of the Month, which is a book subscription service. Each month, their team of experts reads hundreds of incredible books and then chooses 5 that they think are the best of the best, the cream of the crop. You can then pick one of those 5 to be sent to your door in the blue box of dreams. Firstly, it's a great way to get hardback fiction for a great price, but also a fantastic way to discover new and debut authors, emerging talent that maybe you wouldn't have discovered otherwise. Book of the Month champions brilliant writers. I will leave a link down below to subscribe to Book of the Month. You can use my code right here, and trust me, you are in for a treat. Time has passed. I've read this book. I have many thoughts, but firstly, I wanted to say, if I was Emily Henry and I found out that Donald Trump had named his abhorrent policies the Great Big Beautiful Bill, and I just written a book called Great Big Beautiful Life, there would be hell to pay. I would be fuming. And I'm sure she is. So for that reason, I will continue to refer to this as Great BBL. So that aside, let's talk about the book. This, for me, is a great concept, but the execution is a great big mess. I know, I'm genuinely devastated by this because I really wanted to love it, but the structure doesn't work. Great BBL blends 3 genres. It's literary fiction, it's romance, and there's also a little bit of mystery kind of sprinkled in. However, and this is a BBL-sized but, I'm not sure it will satisfy fans of any of those 3 genres because it doesn't do particularly well in any of them. I think it was trying to do maybe too much, But maybe with more drafting, it could have been. I don't think it's impossible to blend those things up into the perfect little cocktail of genres. But in this book, the mystery aspect is flimsy at best, especially because the two people, I'm trying to say this without spoilers, the two people that the mystery involved don't really ever communicate that much in the book. And so it feels a bit anticlimactic. I guess it feels gimmicky, and that's annoying. It's a little tacked on at the end, like pin the mystery on the romance novel. But then the romance doesn't seem that convincing either. It's definitely a romance of convenience. It's one of those books where you're like, I think this makes sense why you're attracted to each other in this specific scenario, but outside of this, do you actually care about each other that much? The female main character, Alice, falls in love with Hayden almost overnight. And yet, aside from being tall, just being a large presence, I'm not actually sure what she really sees in him. He doesn't really have any personality traits, aside from the sort of sunshine versus grumpy dynamic dichotomy that they have. And then all of a sudden, one day, he stops glowering at her. One thing about romance readers, they love the word glower. Everyone is always glowering or moaning. I'm not really sure what their attraction is actually based on, aside from being the only young people in a 10-mile radius. And that's not really enough, I think, to sustain a relationship in the long run. The literary fiction of the novel comes in the form of Margaret Ives, who is this kind of socialite, heiress, who disappeared from the public eye, became super reclusive, but now she wants to tell her story. And if that sounds to you a little bit like this book right here, that's because it kind of is. It's the Evelyn Hugoification of an Emily Henry novel. M. Hen tried to reheat Taylor Jenkins Reid's Nachos, and they were a little stale. It's been done before exceptionally well. It's been done before better. For the first half of this book, Margaret Ives' interviews are so boring. And you're kind of like, what happened to the original plot of the movie? I feel like we could have skipped most of Margaret's lineage and backstory. It could have been just a few lines rather than half of the book. And I feel like a good editor would have chopped that immediately. Because tell me why I'm learning about Margaret Ives' grandparents. Who cares? Entire chapters could have been reduced to a few sentences, and that is an issue for me. And the more I think about it, the more I think that this sort of reads like a screenplay more than a novel. I think it would work on screen. I think that maybe is a better format for this story, but here it just felt a little bit underwhelming. It didn't really work. For me, I can't help but feel that Great BBL was just a little bit rushed. And who wants a rushed BBL? The edits needed on this were so large that it probably would have delayed the book to such an extent that they wouldn't have been able to hit their target of how much they're trying to rinse out of Emily Henry. And so instead, they just pushed through. And I think that that's a bit of a kick in the teeth to the people who support her. It's a compliment that we have come to expect such a high quality of writing from Emily Henry because we know she's capable of it. And in an ideal world, I would love to read something new from her every single year, but if the sacrifice is quality, I'm happy to wait. I'm happy to read a new book every 2 years and reread a book every year. I would rather wait longer and have her books be consistently good. Even in the press tour for this book, she's already talking about how she's written a snowy romance next, and I just think, slow down. Let us linger. Let us focus on one thing. It's turning into kind of like fast fashion books, and we don't need it. To me, the premise of this is brilliant, but this was clumsy handling of a delicate thing. A bit more time to work on it, and it could have been salvaged, and that's what's so frustrating about it, because this author can do so much better. This iteration of this book is so disappointing. Don't get me wrong, I think it's still a solid 3-star book. It just should have been 5. And so, we move on. Okay, the next book that we're going to try is this one. This is Silver Elite by Danny Francis. I really feel that this is the current kind of booktok sensation. It has taken the throne from the Fourth Wing, and thank God we need something new. And I feel excited about this, so I'll report back soon. I will say I have started reading Silver Elite and I am struggling through it. It is really taking everything out of me to get through this book, but I will persevere for you guys, and I'm sticking with it. I will finish this book. I don't want to review it without reading the entire thing, but oh my God, it's testing me for sure. I know that a lot of you watching this will be like, Jack's not enjoying Silver Elite. In other news, water is wet. Like, often you guys know me better than I know myself. You guys are like, oh, you are not going to enjoy that book. When I first logged it on my Goodreads account, the comments were so funny. People were being like, good luck, Jack. You're about to have the worst experience of your life. But listen, I'll give anything a go. I will give anything a shot. I will be open-minded and I'll try it out. But yeah, I'm suffering. I want you to know I'm suffering for this craft. And all of these books, all these other books that I own are like calling my name. I'll come back to you, my love. So, I read Silver Elite And my first question is there like a support group of some kind that I can join for people who have read this? Secondly, I need to address booktok specifically. Booktok, look me in the eye. What the hell is this? Booktok, when I catch you. Booktok, there is a warrant out for your arrest. I feel that the term elite on this cover is misleading because there was nothing elite about this. Honestly, it did prove to me a very valuable life lesson, and that is that FOMO is okay. Sometimes it's okay to just mow. Sometimes it's okay to miss out. This is a dystopia in which social and political drama and this kind of landscape is constructed entirely as a backdrop for smut. That's all it is. It is set design, it is context for the smut. And I'm gutted because I actually really thought it started out quite promising. Like the character was plucky, a little bit mouthy, but headstrong. And I didn't think in a very cringeworthy way, which sometimes these kind of like chosen one narratives are. She was a little saucy, she was a little spicy. I was liking that this was targeted at adults. However, she just never develops beyond that opening scene. So let me set the scene. Wren Darlington has these psychic abilities, right? And so does her uncle. However, they live in a society where people are oppressed and marginalized for having these psychic abilities. The government is essentially trying to eradicate these people, either by killing them or expelling them. Her uncle is executed at the very beginning of the book. That's not a spoiler. And so now Wren is essentially left alone in the world, and she has to fend for herself and also for her people. And she knows there's a kind of network of support for people like her. But at the same time, there is this academy, the Silver Elite, who are the fighting task force of their oppressors. And because there are some suspicions around her abilities when her uncle is discovered and then executed, she is sent to enroll in this academy, basically to prove her worth to the regime and prove that she is not a traitor, that she will fight for the system. This book had all of the ingredients for a great novel, a great franchise even. It just forgot to cook them. The ingredients expired. They went rotten while these guys were, I don't know, fucking on the kitchen table? Because basically, this character is just too damn horny for her own good. She is the horniest horn dog alive. She needs to go to horny jail with no parole. And I'm not shading her for that. It's just that when you're trying to fight an oppressive regime, being so turned on by your oppressors that you can't do anything about it feels like a bit of a character flaw. No, she's meant to be using this opportunity to infiltrate the regime and see from the inside and kind of be the like rotten core at the center of the apple. Except she's completely useless. She is so attracted to Cross Redden, who is basically like the commander of the Silver Block and the Silver Elite, that she can't get anything done because she's so distracted by how handsome this guy is, even though she perceives him to be evil. She can't stop being horny for 5 minutes. Every other line is like, he's so evil, but he's so hot. He makes my blood boil, but his hair just falls in such a perfect way. Like the curls of his hair, I want to twist around my fingers. Girl, you should be strangling him with those fingers. You should, like, what is happening here? His arms, which uphold a perilous and evil regime which actively oppresses people and is the reason my uncle was brutally murdered in a town square, embarrassing him in front of everyone in town. But the arms are just so defined and strong. His hands have blood on them from all of his innocent victims, including my own family members, but I kind of just want to hold them in my own. His body harbors such evil, but I want to feel it against mine. You know, like, pull it together, girl. Behave yourself. You know, let's focus. Let's eyes on the prize. Do you think Katniss Everdeen would have stood for this? She would have laughed in your face and then shot an arrow through your neck just to laugh at you even more. Now, spoiler warning, and you can skip forward to, I'll put the timestamp on the screen that you can skip forward to if you don't want a spoiler. Have you done it? You've been warned. The guy turns out to be on her side all along. And it's obvious. It's obvious what's gonna happen. Like, for God's sake. And also I was like, can't you just commit to exploring a messy dynamic? Like, if you're gonna do the whole enemies to lovers thing, at least make him consistently an enemy, like a pure enemy. What was the point in the entire moral dilemma if it turns out he was good all along? And another thing, I'm not done. Firstly, this feels like a cheap way to just resolve all of the conflict of the novel. It's lazy. But secondly, it doesn't change the fact that for the last 300 pages, she did think he was an oppressor, and she still was too horny to do anything. She has still been lusting over the enemy for the past 300 pages. Okay, yes, he is now on our side. He's now on her side. Whatever. But it's very convenient that he's not actually evil, because if he had evil running through his bloodstream, she would still be attracted to him and she would still be getting nothing done. Feels like an easy way out for the author to kind of like resolve the issue that she's attracted to the bad guy by being like, oh, actually, don't worry about that. He's not actually that bad. It turns out he was on our side all along. Cheap, boring. As a dystopia lover, I'm annoying. I'm mad. Silver, you wouldn't even be getting bronze. Danny Francis, if that even is your real name. Basically, Danny Francis is a pseudonym. So we know that this was written by a New York Times bestselling author, but we don't know who. Some people have said maybe it's Colleen Hoover. Some people have said maybe it's L. Kennedy, I think. Some people have said maybe this is AI, because there's no heart to this. This feels like it was written by a machine. A very horny machine, I will say. But the dystopia here has the same amount of integrity as like the sexy plumber in a porno who's come to fix the pipes, you know? Like, they're ornamental. Sorry, I know this is crass, but you know in like a porno where there's like 30 seconds of plot and then just... That's what this is. The dystopia is just like the context building. It's just a backdrop. It's arbitrary. It doesn't have anything to actually say on like a political or social level. And maybe I just read the wrong book. Like maybe that's what people are reading this for. Maybe they do just want the smart. But when it's branded as a kind of like dystopian drama and there's like that political background, that's what I'm intrigued by. I don't know. And you can have political drama with relationships embedded as well. Like 1984 is a great example of that. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be both. So I was just like disappointed by this one, I think. But then maybe I'm not the target audience for it. And I'm sure they're going to drag this out to be a 6-part series. I will be able to say I read book 1 and nothing more. Thank you very much. I'm going to sit this one out. See you later. You guys have fun. Stay safe. The back of the book says, trust no one, lie to everyone, and whatever you do, don't fall for your greatest enemy. Well, assignment not understood. Mission failed. And that is all I have to say on that. This made me like unnecessarily angry. So, moving on. I'm reading The Hunger Games. I'm obsessed with it already. However, tell me how I completely forgot that Haymitch was chosen as a tribute for the Quarter Quell on his birthday. Suzanne Collins' mind. It's so evil, yet so brilliant. It's also so brilliantly foreshadowing his future issues with alcoholism. This is fantastic so far. This is how you do dystopia. Oh, we are so back. We are so back. You have to call me Back Edwards from now on. That's how back we are. Suzanne Collins. Can I call you Suzanne? Suzanne, you are a sick and twisted individual. You better pay for my therapy bills. What the hell? Thank you so much for your services to literature. This book, Sunrise on the Reaping, the new Hunger Games prequel, just had all the magic of book 1 in the trilogy. This had all the magic of the original Hunger Games. And I guess part of that is structural because you go through the motions of this world once again, like you get reintroduced to normal everyday life before the reaping itself, the journey to the capital, the games, the disillusionment, the fire in the belly to rebel against the system that oppresses you. But also there is so much fan service just embedded within this book, intertwined within the narrative. You know, we have Mags, we have Wyrus, Beatty, Effie Trinket, you know, but it doesn't feel gimmicky. This was the perfect balance of being moving and nostalgic. It's powerful. This is coming from the mind of a person who only speaks when she feels she has something to say. And I know it sounds stupid, but like you can tell there's just so much love poured into these pages. Like the author loves this universe that she has created. And I will say she's a very smart writer because every time you think, oh, I'll stop reading now and I'll go and do other things that I need to do in my life, every single chapter ends with some kind of like cliffhanger, some kind of moment where you're like, oh, I guess I'm going to be reading this for the rest of the day. Like you would actually have to prise this out of my white knuckled fingers. I did not want to put this down. And there's magic in that too, in the sense of falling in love with reading. I felt like I was falling in love with reading all over again. Maybe that's because that's what the original trilogy did for me, and this just felt like such a great homage to that, as well as being a riveting new story in the series. But yeah, truly, you just turn the pages like you're on autopilot. They basically turn themselves. That's how addictive this is. So if your name is Patrick Starr and you've been living under an actual rock, the concept of this book is that it's Haymitch's games. So Haymitch, who is Katniss and Peter's mentor in the original Hunger Games trilogy, this is his Hunger Games. Here's the tricky thing about writing this. We already know that he wins these games because that is a crucial part of the original trilogy. I saw people saying that was a spoiler. That's not really a spoiler. We already know that. And yet, even knowing essentially what the ending will be, I was still on the edge of my seat. And it's incredibly captivating regardless. Also, the ending of this book. Suzanne, you know what you did. Truly devastating. I will say no more. Read it for yourself. But oh my goodness. Suzanne! I've already been recommending this to so many of my friends who are like trying to get back into reading. I told them, you know, if you loved the original Hunger Games, this will give you that sensation all over again. And I mean, you guys know that I ride for the original Hunger Games trilogy. Like, I believe that it's a modern classic. I think it's often dismissed in conversations about like what the modern classics are because it's primarily written for a younger audience. But then is that really true? Because I feel like it resonates with adults just as much. It's just that it can also be appreciated by younger audiences, that there's no kind of sexually explicit content, for example. But because I've been banging on about how much I love the Hunger Games, I was actually invited by Scholastic to host the midnight release of Sunrise on the Reaping. So we were the first people in the world to get this book. And it was so under lock and key that I, even though I was hosting the event, wasn't given a copy until midnight. So we all got copies at the exact same time. And it was such an incredible evening. I felt so honored to get to do that. They had axe throwing in the bookstore, like real axes. And so it's been really fun also being there right at the start and then seeing the world fall in love with this book as well, and BookTok championing it so much. Okay, I forgot to say this when I was recording originally, but I feel like you guys will appreciate it. When I was asked to host the midnight release of the Hunger Games Sunrise on the Reaping, I basically had the idea of announcing the panelists on the event that I was hosting through a reaping. I was like, I'm gonna channel my inner Effie Trinket. And so I got this kind of like fishbowl and I put all of the authors' names into the fishbowl. And then the way I announced them onto the stage, because it was basically like a panel of young adult authors, the way I announced them onto the stage was by pulling their name out of the bowl as if they were being selected as tributes in the quarter quell. I hope you guys appreciate that because it really was a highlight of my life. And I realized that I had one chance to be Effie Trinket, and I was like, I'm going to do it. And I hope you know that when I come up with these ideas, I have to pitch them to the marketing team and be like, trust me, I think this is going to be fun. And the best thing about book people is that they're like, no, you absolutely need to do that. So that's what we did. Everyone was up for it, and kind of felt like a bucket list moment. So very grateful. Anyway, back to me from before. I always talk about how the Hunger Games entered the lexicon. You know, if someone says, I volunteer as tribute, or this was Hunger Games-esque, we would know what that meant. And yet somehow the world unfolding around us feels like it was written by Suzanne Collins. Like, it can be so terrifying. And so I think that the relevance of this series is only increasing as time goes on. But then there was also new content, you know, like the new arenas that Suzanne Collins described were so immersive. This is an author just having so much fun with the world that she has created, of course, very inspired by the one that we actually do live in. I will say though, I don't think this is a perfect book. I know, because I've been so effusive about it, but let me explain. My critiques would be, there were so many songs. Oh my God. It's like going to karaoke night when you've lost your voice. Like, there's just so many characters singing, especially near the end. Like, that is the one element of the Hunger Games books I wish I could just remove. Although maybe I'm just bitter because I am tone deaf and I can't sing myself. Also, the fact that Haymitch full government names his girlfriend every single time he refers to her. Like, it's always Lenore Dove. You couldn't just call her Lenore every single time. Lenore Dove this, Lenore Dove that, Lenore Dove this. We get it. Her name is Lenore Dove. Just full naming her every single time just started to grate on me like cheese. I was like, come on. And although I did love the fan service, although I did think that there were some really fun links to the original Hunger Games trilogy, and this really does feel like the missing puzzle piece that we needed for this narrative. Maybe some of the links were a little bit forced. Maybe some of the references were a tad forced. You know, there's so much character crossover. I don't know if all of them were necessary. There were just so many, but that's a minor critique. I'm so happy this exists. I'm very excited about the film adaptation that is coming. The cast, incredible. I feel like all the budget has gone onto that cast, and the mutts in this book are going to look like this. I just had a lot of fun with this book. I did, while I was reading it, think a lot about Great Big Beautiful Life, Great BBL, just because I guess like reading them one after the other, it really made me think about how obvious it was that Great BBL was being written for a movie adaptation. It feels like her sole intention with that book is to get it turned into a screenplay. And I wonder if that's more where her heart is, if she's more interested, Emily Henry, I mean, having her novels turned into on-screen adaptations. Whereas this will obviously be turned into a movie adaptation. We know it's going to be turned into a movie, and yet the book has so much merit as a piece of art in its own right. And I think that's the case for all of the Hunger Games books. So yeah, in my opinion, I think I would rate this a solid 4 out of 5, maybe like 4.25, 4.5. I loved it, and I would heartily recommend it. I do think it relies a lot on the nostalgia that we feel for the original trilogy, but that's okay. That was Sunrise on the Reaping. Okay. I'm done. I've read the final book that I wanted to read for this video. I will say, I think that this has been my least successful BookTok exploration so far. I've done this multiple times and I've always found a book I really, really loved. I will say, I did really enjoy The Hunger Games, so there is that. But we are ending on a little bit of a bum note because Say You'll Remember Me was ironically incredibly forgettable. I actually listened to this as an audiobook and I nearly pulled a Vincent van Gogh and ripped one of my ears off because the sheer number of times that it was mentioned that the male main character in some way resembled Raisan from Akatar. Oh my god, it's actually a good thing that I was listening as an audiobook because if I had the physical copy, I think I would have thrown it out of the window. But if I did that with my phone, then I wouldn't be able to watch the videos of the lady who, like, she crochets these little frogs. She is so famous to me. That's my favorite influencer, the lady who crochets frogs. One thing I would like to eradicate, and that I think we should collectively agree to stop doing, is titling books after Taylor Swift lyrics. Do not get me wrong, I'm a Swiftie. I supported her throughout the Reputation era. I was there. In the trenches. You know, I've got the friendship bracelets from the Eras tour. If I ever see Jake Gyllenhaal, it's on site. You know, like, I ride for Taylor Swift. However, I do think that the whole, like, Taylor Swift lyrics as book titles gimmick is a little bit tired. I think it's time that we stop doing that now. And this one, it kind of refers to the fact that the female main character, her mum, has dementia, but this book is more of a romance book, and it's not really a double entendre because it doesn't apply to the romance very much. They're sort of in this long-distance relationship, but they definitely aren't in a situation of, like, please remember me, because, quite frankly, they are so pathetic. They won't stop talking about each other the entire time. For me, I think that my issue with this book is that everything just felt so obvious. Like, every single thought is spelled out in absurd level of detail. It kind of feels like a Disney Channel original movie for people who have never been on a date before, you know? But it's directed towards adults. Like, this is an adult book, it's not YA, but they just spell out exactly what they're thinking down to the letter. Like, at points I was like, was this book written for people who are experiencing their very first day on Earth? Because you have to trust the audience, and you have to trust that the audience are capable of inferring things, that some things are just implied and implicit. Every thought that these characters had, or feeling, or sentiment, you just get, like, slapped over the head with. Even the opening. It's this guy, Xavier, and he's a vet. He cares for animals, and at the beginning of the novel, you see him saving a dog's life. This is just textbook 101 how to write a novel. Like, it's actually the most basic writing advice that, so there's this book called Save the Cat, and the concept and theory behind Save the Cat is that if you want the audience to root for a character who may make questionable decisions at other points in the book, instead of saying, he is a good guy, by the way, which is basically what this book does anyway, just to make double, triple, quadruple sure that you understand you should be rooting for these people. But they employ that save the cat tactic, but he saves a dog. The idea is that if a character commits kind of a heroic act at the beginning of the novel, then you as the reader will understand that they are a fundamentally good person, and therefore whatever they do, you kind of want the best for them and you empathize with them. Like, you're more open-minded towards any of the kind of flaws that they may have, because you know that deep down they are capable of goodness. So anyway, that's kind of what this book does, but very literally. Like, I don't think that Save the Cat theory needs to be applied so to the letter. Once you know of theories like that, you start to notice it in a lot of books, but at least sometimes it's done with subtlety. This is done with all the subtlety of a reversing dump truck. And I bring that up because I think it just demonstrates as an example how basic the writing is here. The book isn't offensive, it's not, like, bad, it's just not good either. Like, it's not gonna blow you away, you know? So maybe if you haven't read a fictional book in, like, 10 years, you will really enjoy this one. But I would say if you are a regular romance reader or a reader in general, you probably just want a little bit more from this. And I think this is an important point because, you know, I often see people dismiss romance, like, oh, it's just a romance book, it's just a silly, fluffy romance book. Why are we thinking too deeply about it? Why are we thinking about the quality of the writing? Why do we care? You should care. You really should care about that. And I think that it undermines the romance genre as a whole, if you're like, oh, it's just a romance. It's not just romance. Love is one of the things that we think about our entire lives. I remember in Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney, she mentions, you know, it's not superficial or trivial to be writing about romance and love and connection and communication and sex, because those are the things that we spend our entire lives thinking about. Like on your deathbed, you will be thinking about the people that you love. And so why shouldn't we make art about it? And why shouldn't we give our criticism of art that dignity to think about it as an important form, an important medium of self-expression? So I can never really get on board when people say like, it's just a romance. It's not just a romance, it's a romance. It's also one of the biggest selling genres. Like in the ecosystem of publishing, we rely on romance books because they have such universal appeal. And so I don't think that it is pretentious or ridiculous to suggest that these books should be good and should be of a certain standard. I think of examples like 7 Days in June. Perfect romance. Emily Henry's Happy Place, I think, is a perfect romance. There are so many brilliantly executed love stories and romance books, so I don't think we should undermine the genre like that. Does that make sense? Back to Say You'll Remember Me. There is a scene where they kind of get locked in an escape room, and that's how they initially bond. And I did really like that. I was there with them, I was rooting for them. That one felt probably the only memorable part of the whole book. And up to the 50% mark, it does seem to have potential. Yes, there are a few annoying moments, like the constant references to ACOTAR, but I was like, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, I can look past that. But after the 50% mark, it just got a little bit monotonous. They're kind of navigating this long distance relationship, but they really are kind of like putty in each other's hands. It felt like the reading equivalent of watching a video in slow motion. Does that make sense? Like, I genuinely was like, why is time moving at half speed when I'm reading this? The ending I also thought was just a bit underwhelming. It kind of set up the situation, but there was nowhere to go with it. And the crazy thing is, the gag is, this is gonna be a series. Who wants to read another book about these characters? I actually am baffled by that. I definitely think she should pick another project. Like, these characters are so boring, they would go to a snooze fest and think, this is a bit much for me. This is a bit intense. I don't want to spend another chapter with these people, let alone another book. In fact, I'm jealous of the mum in this book who has dementia, because at least she can forget. At least she can forget this happened. That's a joke, by the way. Apparently I did start in the wrong place with Abby Jimenez, because she has this trilogy of books that apparently is very good. Because when I finished this book, I will say I had this moment of being like, am I missing something? What is not connecting with me that other people are loving so much about this author? But I did see that even kind of diehard Abby Jimenez fans were sort of underwhelmed by this particular book. So I'm definitely not saying I will never read her writing again. I just didn't love this one very much. Tell me what you guys think in the comment section if you've read any other Abby Jimenez books. Like, where should I go from here? Other than like The Clinic from Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind to eradicate this and any memory of it from my brain. But yeah, that's the video, I guess. I wasn't massively convinced by Great BBL, Silver Elite, or Say You'll Remember Me. I mean, thank God for Sunrise on the Reaping, otherwise this would have been Flop City, Population 1, me. That really saved this, I think. Okay, so hopefully we have more luck in the next video. I need a 5-star book. I really need a 5-star read. So I think I might, for my next video, do a video where I read books I'm predicting will be 5 stars, and we'll see if they actually end up being 5 stars. I think that could be quite fun, so stay tuned for that. You can subscribe if you're new. Thank you so much to Book of the Month for sponsoring this video. I'll also, of course, be over on TikTok, making my book talk videos and recommending you books over there as well. For now, thank you for watching this video. All the best, stay in touch, have the most wonderful day, and I'll catch you very soon. Bye-bye.